We're back.
Is it too bright?
I forgot.
It
Seems kind of bright. Adonis Stevenson, light heavyweight champion, retained his lineal championship with the draw. We already talked about the fight. We watched the fight, everybody saw it. But what I was wondering about Adonis is, he has this he's kind of known out there for being the guy that ducks Kovalev, right? We all bought into this narrative of, he's afraid of Kovalev. But last night I was thinking, this guy doesn't look like he's afraid of anybody. Because, he was in a rough fight, and, he wasn't afraid. You know what I mean? And Jack's a really good fighter. And Adonis Stevenson has, ridiculous power. And I feel like if you have that kind of power and you're tough like he is, you don't fear people. You're down to throw down. So then I was thinking, is it really fair that we think about him in this light? Or is it...
Or do we have evidence to think of Adonis Stevenson in this light?
Right. Or is it a narrative that we as fight fans bought into simply through circumstance? And here's what I mean by that. I think that there are certain promoters and certain companies in boxing that are good about driving media narratives. I always talk about Gennady Golovkin's promoter, Tom Loeffler. He's great at that. I mean, look, he's doing Sunday track workouts with the Ring magazine editor. He just happens to be doing that. That's good. You know what I'm saying? He does these little things. He was always he came I remember him introducing himself to me, and I was like, what? He goes out of his way to do that kind of thing. Great stuff. He's a great guy. But when you do that kind of stuff, he was always able to drive this narrative of Gennady Golovkin being the most feared man, and they couldn't find anybody for him to fight. Might be true. Okay, it might be true. But then again, it might just be that he's really good at talking to the media. And I feel like, in my experience with Kathy Duva and the people at Main Events, great people as well, maybe they did the same thing with Kovalev, right? Maybe Stevenson...
Maybe the fight just couldn't get made
because
for
Stevenson
any variety
was with PBC.
Of reasons. Yeah, and it could be money. It could be being with PBC versus being what is a Kathy Duva fighter? What are
Main Events?
Main Events.
And usually on HBO, they're on.
Yeah. So then you have the channels involved, and you have all this stuff that plays a factor into the fight.
Right.
So maybe for any variety of boring technical reasons, fights just don't get made.
Right.
But a job of a promoter is to make sure that their fighter doesn't come out worse for it.
Yeah.
And so if you can drive that narrative, you can actually have a fight not get made and have your fighter come out better for it.
Yeah.
And so that's what you're saying.
So I'm wondering, when I watched
Adonis.
Stevenson, because last night I was watching him, and I started thinking about Andre Ward. I was like, man, Andre Ward could come back and beat both these guys, I feel like, and I wish I could see that. But then I was like, Andre Ward beat Kovalev pretty handily the second fight, First fight I thought Kovalev was a close decision winner, but it was a close fight, and so fine either way, fine.
Close.
But the second fight, clearly Andre Ward was a better fighter. So then I was like, could Andre Ward I was thinking that would be a good fight, him and Stevenson, because Stevenson's a really good fighter. And then I was thinking, well, I don't even know how I feel about Stevenson versus Kovalev now that I've seen Kovalev kind of be undressed versus Ward, because I was like, what happens when Kovalev gets nailed with one of Stevenson's left hands? What happens then? I don't know. I'm not saying that either fighter should be the favorite or whatever. I'm just saying I don't know. And so I would just wonder, I don't know, maybe, and I don't know if it's even our job as fans. Maybe it's media who has to do a better job of, but then, it's hard because it's hard to, media are just people, we're just people, so it's not like anyone, I know that
Well, I feel like in boxing, we don't have a
real media?
well-known, media outlet that we go to that has the resources for, hard reporting.
Right.
So, this is the kind of reporting you would need. So you'd have, it's promoter's job to push out a narrative. That's what they do. Then you have media out there that, hey, we just talk about what's going on in boxing. And we don't really say anything that's going to ruffle any feathers.
Right.
We just, we love boxing. We want fans to love it, and we want you to watch us. We're not going to ruffle any feathers.
A lot of the boxing media is that. And then there's people...
But then you need, other... Well, and I feel like we have a bunch of different, media people all over.
In boxing, there's also a third group of media that just have opinions and say, this is what I think, okay? And I was like that. I'm like that. And I was like that we were supposed to be like that at Bleacher Report, right? And I think of people that just write mostly columns, right? But I don't know, how much access do people really get, right, with people, the people in the know or whatever. And so, on one side, you're like, well, we need to get those guys more access. Okay, but then what happens is if you get them more access, they're talking to the people every day, then... So I remember when we would talk to HBO a lot. When I worked for Bleacher Report, there would be... HBO would... Basically what happens is HBO's like, hey, we got these fights coming out, so we're going to make ourselves available so that we can promote it, right?
And they're connected to Bleacher Report, right?
Well, it just so happens that the same company owns both. Right. So it was never like an overt
it was just thing, but it made the connection easy,
yeah,
because we're owned by the same company.
Just like with Dan Raphael at ESPN, they're involved with boxing, so so it's not like Dan Raphael is an independent journalist. It's
no, so you would need an independent outlet that also it would be valuable because you have to fund somebody. So if you're going to have somebody do hardline reporting that figures things out, well, guess what? They have to travel. They have to spend their time.
They have to be at their home.
Right.
Coming up with stuff out of the air.
Which is when you write opinions or different things like that, you can just be at home. Right. You watch the sport and then you develop an opinion and you're a good writer.
I like reading.
Yeah.
So,
But we were just saying that this is maybe missing. So then you get the narrative from the promoter and nobody is combating it, right? Right. Nobody's coming out against it. So then you believe it. I believed it up until we're having this conversation today.
Right.
This weekend about this fight. I was like, yeah, Adonis.
He's brave.
He doesn't deserve to be champion because he doesn't really fight everybody. And then Kelsey's like, but is that true? And I'm like, oh. Well, that's always a good question to ask anytime you just go all in on something. Be like, is it true?
Yeah.
So yeah, it's an interesting. I don't know if boxing as a niche sport has the resources to have reporters out there that do this kind of work. So I don't know. The fans would have to really support something like that in order to make it worthwhile.
Yeah, you have to have enough fans to get enough advertisers
to make it. Yeah.
Because what you have is mostly a mixture. Most.
And we have this coming about. Sorry to interrupt. We have this coming about in the same time that we have clickbait and just all this
slideshows
overload of making it makes you want to just click trash articles. And so that's why reporting in general has gone off to be wayside. So what can we expect in boxing? Yeah, this is across. We just happen to maybe have it be a little bit more, maybe a little bit more. I don't know. Isn't that what what's his face does on HBO? Is it Brian Gumbel? No.
Oh, Real Sports.
Real Sports.
Yeah, I mean that. Those.
But I'm not sure if I believe that they're impartial because I feel like they have a bias.
They have a huge bias.
But
which exists in all people, so I don't know. It's a complicated question, I guess. So I guess for me, my takeaway is that I would like Kelsey first as a boxing media person, especially, but also just as somebody who watches boxing, to not buy into promoter narratives as much. I've gotten a lot better than that since we stopped going to fights, so I don't ever see or talk to these people. And I was off Twitter for so long that I didn't know what people said or thought, so I could just watch boxing and develop my own opinions, and that's been real helpful for me. So just continuing that to go forward and questioning things and being I'm wrong all the time. That Jaime Munguia right? I was like, I can't believe Golovkin wants to fight this guy, and then he looks great, you know. So I'm gonna be wrong, but I can just do the best I can do.